Hey guys, so throughout all of this HYBE mess, we seem to have forgotten that Min Hee-jin, Nugeen's mama, has been dismissed by the court of law in South Korea. Her injunction ain't gonna injunct nothing. And she's figuring out now that she can't have her toast buttered on both sides no more. She would have lauded and held another press conference saying that she had been absolved of all guilt and she won, just the way that she did with the first injunction. But with this injunction, what is going on with the public? It seems as if they don't even recognize the significance of what happened because she conveniently threw out another media play, and everybody just wants to talk about this nothing burger document leak by HYBE. Well, let's get into that, and then also some new evidence that has emerged as to why there may be some real teeth to the accusations against Kakao really trying to take down HYBE and having a lot of skin in this game. So really, Min Hee-jin, what did you want to injunct? There was nothing to be injuncting. And in a way, HYBE seemed to have done a very smart move over the summer when people were wondering, like, what are they doing? They did pull a fast one and they did fire her, and perhaps that was unexpected. And in some ways, maybe HYBE's very demure, mindful approach allows those very strategic moves to happen, I guess, in the middle of the night where you catch somebody off guard. Had Min Hee-jin known that they were going to fire her as CEO over the summer when they did, that's when perhaps she could have won an injunction because there was something that the judge could actually do, whether it was right or wrong. But in this case, because she had already been fired and the next things on the agenda items were just to actually put her in the board of directors for another 5 years, which is essentially meaningless because she's gonna get overvoted each time. So there's really nothing to worry about there. Some of you guys were asking, but because there was nothing to stop or to block because it had already been done, she really would, if the judge had gone along with her, she would really be like rewriting constitutional law or creating a mess for other people. At the heart of it, at the heart of the judge saying, nope, we can't do this. No, there's nothing to injunct. And even if we did, that would not force HYBE to make you CEO. What she is doing is now stepping into territory where if she got her way, then other big corporations, big important shareholders, namely the chaebol-owning family class of Korea, would be after her. Because what that would have done was allow any judge to force the board of directors to do something that really is not in the scope of government oversight, to the point where, like, the judge now has power to run your business. And then you know what whole can of worms that would open up, where judges suddenly have all of this absolute power. They're the ones being lobbied. They're the ones being showered with gifts and opportunities for corruption. So thank goodness that at least that part of the system is not going to collapse to the Jezebel Institute of Treachery. Now, just a quick note on this HYBE docu-nothing burger. Yes, it was a lot of pages. Yes, it shouldn't have been released to the public like this. And was it a little bit shocking? Maybe, perhaps. I would have to go through it and see what part of it was actually the HYBE's executives writing in their own words or voices versus the quotes that they were taking from comments online. But even if, now this is why I think it's so nothing of a burger from the snippets that we've seen about like comments about how their own artists look, or maybe one of them swells too much if they, eat too much salt, so they have to talk to them about it, and on to competitors like Blackpink, like monitoring them. You don't think that that is just a normal course of business? It only feels a little bit more shocking, I think, to the average person because it has to do with somebody's looks. And that's something that's usually off the table when you're talking about corporate business practices. You're not talking about like the looks of your coworkers or department heads or whatever, or even like competitors. That's kind of weird. However, this is the entertainment industry. And unfortunately for pop music, there's a lot more emphasis on your looks than your actual musical ability or talent, which means that that part of the product that is being sold is much more important. And you better believe, even in doing the news on TV, you as the TV person are so very concerned about your look because you can spend all day working on a story, doing the most, and really working hard to get the truth out there and a really good story. Drove all over town getting interviews and all this kind of stuff. And one little hair that's out of place, people are just going to focus in on that and then not pay attention to your story. Or let's say there's something wrong with your outfit or your tie's a little crooked. All of these visual elements are super important, and that's just the news people. Think about it for when the idols. That is a lot of pressure. And so, yes, every single part should be scrutinized. And just looking at the reports that I've seen off of this report, it didn't even look like HYBE was that super strict about it. And so, when people say like, oh, like famous singer A, B, or C is such a diva, I understand it in some sense because they are going to criticize themselves and monitor themselves before anybody online would ever say something, about their hair, their looks, or their weights, or like, even how they position, themselves. That's why they are the idols, and that's why the practice is so important. And so that it becomes almost second nature, and then you think it's just second nature, but there was a lot of practice there and a lot of, being vigilant about what you're putting out there. But then at the same time, you have to look so casual, and then we get spoiled by a lot of the the X Factor type of groups like BTS, where they have all of the perfection, but then they also look so imperfect. And so people just you get both sides of the coin all the time. And you're just like, wow, I love them so much. But usually it's like one or the other. And because it's an entertainment business, the one, I guess, the more practical and very strict about your looks and appearance and image is the one where the businesses, entertainment agencies focus on. So if you don't like to see how the sausage is made, then don't eat the sausage, or don't look at that part. But from what I've seen from the HYBE documents is that it is nothing as big as everybody is making it out to be. Yes, we can go more into it, but I think that what we're doing by going in that direction would be falling for the freaking media campaign, because what all of this is doing is distracting from actually HYBE's very legitimate and strongest positions. The strongest position that Min Hee-jin would take if she had won the injunction was to talk about the injunction. However, HYBE, instead of talking about the injunction, has to defend some document that they had made a year ago, and that's just a standard business practice. And because it's not something that the normal public is comfortable with in terms of like that's how entertainment is done, they have to spend time mitigating it, but who threw the dog poo into the living room in the first place? That would be the media smear campaign team. And of course, we're thinking it's Min Hee-jin minions, her fans, New Jean fans, bunnies. But then the way it looks is that there may be a Kakao influence going on here. But first, I wanted to go over the actual part of the injunction that failed, because that's what HYBE should be talking about, because that's what it succeeded in. It blocked the injunction. And not only did it block the injunction, it didn't look like they had to fight that hard, because the law was fighting for HYBE, or the law was quote unquote fair and strong enough where HYBE really didn't have to do much, because Min Hee-jin was literally trying to break the law. So Min Hee-jin wanted to be CEO again of ADOR, and she argued that HYBE needed to fulfill its obligations or its promise in the shareholder agreement that she had made with HYBE. But she wanted to force ADOR's board of directors to make her the CEO. Now, if you kind of look at it in the sense of like, aren't they the same? Well, let's say HYBE is the husband and ADOR is the wife, and the wife decides on who is the CEO. And Min Hee-jin probably said like, well, I made a deal with you, you as a couple, like husband and wife, that the husband would tell the wife to make me a CEO until my shareholder agreement had been done. So Min Hee-jin is probably saying like, I made a deal with the husband. The husband says that he's going to tell the wife to make sure that I do I get to be CEO. Well, now this wife, oh yeah, she was probably the first one to sniff out that way. What kind of deal was you making with our husband? We're shutting that down, and no husband of mine is going to be telling me what to do. And so then we have the ADOR board of directors saying like, we're not going to hire you as CEO. And then the husband is saying like, well, if you're not the CEO, then actually our agreement for, basically giving her like all these stock options is not valid, because if you ain't the CEO, then I don't have to do anything about the shareholder thing. Not only that, you gone and done trying to beat up my kids, kidnap my kids, and just ruin this family. So we don't want you here, but you're insisting on staying, and so we gonna keep the Jezebel close, I guess, in this kind of situation. And now, wife's on board. So in this situation, she wanted to force the board of directors of ADOR through the judge to hear her agenda item of putting her back in as CEO. Now that doesn't make any sense in terms of like, it really wouldn't work that way. It was as if she wanted to make the toilet flush in the opposite direction, and she wanted the water to come back up, and then everyone's like, no, it doesn't work that way. The most that you can do is stop HYBE from flushing the toilet. If there's something really wrong with them about to flush, you're going to stop them with the judge. That's essentially what the injunction is. It can't be about like, well, we have to force HYBE to press the flushing button. That is not an injunction to begin with. And so she would have to now go into a lawsuit, which is a little bit trickier for her and could probably end by the time her original contract is up. Like, they can spread this lawsuit out. That's why she's trying to do fast injunctions. But if she did a lawsuit, then this basically can go on even past the end of her 5-year term. So that would also be moot. And so the judge really stressed that the board of directors of ADOR must be in the driver's seat. They must decide what is best for the company. And they said, even if the court said, okay, HYBE, just why don't you tell the ADOR board of directors to make her CEO again? The board of directors, legally, by law, doesn't have to be forced by HYBE to make Min Hee-jin the CEO. Imagine if things were reversed and Min Hee-jin controlled the board of directors and she didn't want to do what HYBE wanted to do that she disagreed with. She would be the first person to say ADOR's board needs to be independent and run as its own entity to safeguard ADOR. She would be the first person to say that. Yes, HYBE can replace the board of directors if they didn't like that because they have 80% ownership. But it's another thing whatsoever if HYBE doesn't want to replace the board of directors for then a judge to force HYBE to replace the board of directors. That would overstep the boundaries of what a judge should do or has even any jurisdiction over. So now let's move on to the missing part of this story that looks like it is inching away from sort of like conspiracy theory or just theories in general to more of a concrete scenario. Because Min Hee-jin is not giving up. Min Hee-jin looks like she is being backed by somebody who we're all like speculating like who is she being backed by. But very practically from the evidence that we've seen from her Kakao Talk chats, where she's basically saying that she is going to partner with the whole Kakao SM team to take over HYBE, that seems to make a lot more sense given some new evidence that came out in an article that was quoted by Espan Jeans. We're saying that there's a lot of people with skin in the game to see HYBE fail. In particular, people who have invested money, not only invested money, but borrowed money to invest in a Kakao Entertainment IPO, initial public offering. And the reason why I think this has a lot of legs is that I've seen this happen a lot in Korea, that there are very few avenues for a relatively guaranteed kind of big jackpot, and people are just extremely desperate for that kind of an opportunity or a payoff. So this looks like almost like a guaranteed sure thing, especially for at least 1,000 employees of Kakao Entertainment or the Kakao Group and its affiliates who have bought in to be the first people who are going to profit from an initial public offering of Kakao Entertainment. So Kakao Talk itself, Kakao Group, like that corporate entity is already traded on the stock market. But what this would do is that it would spin off one of the divisions, Kakao Entertainment, into its own separate stock. And so if you were one of the people who owned stock really early, before it got sold to the open market to investors, you would make a lot of money. Maybe you double your money, triple your money. There have probably been all sorts of sweet nothings being whispered into the ears of Kakao employees, apparently since 2018, when they've been offering all of this opportunity for an IPO to their own employees. So the theory is that it's not just the bigwigs, investors, Min Hee-jin, sovereign wealth funds, although, I'm sure that they have a big hand in this as well. But on the ground in Korea, 1,000 employees, and at Kakao, those employees generally are like cream of the crop and well connected. I'm sure many of them come from more of the privileged class to, work at Kakao Entertainment, but even they can get into trouble with getting too much leverage or borrowing too much money to buy into, because you have to pay for the shares before you actually can sell them. And so there's like a waiting period where, you've outlaid all this money. If it was just money from your bank account, that would be one thing. But then if you've borrowed money to buy even bigger shares, or you've pooled money from your relatives, which is what there's also speculation. It makes sense. So this is the part where you would bridge like maybe some of the gray zone until you can get all of the, but you can't get into, people's private trades and stuff like that. But from if you've been in Korea, you can kind of see that this could be extremely likely, and that out of 1,000 people and their network of people who have all bought in and they're just waiting for this IPO to happen and they're blaming HYBE for not being able to do it, there is a lot of pressure to then damage HYBE and then use your resources. These are not resourceless people. Use your resources to help with the takedown of HYBE. So Kakao Entertainment was supposed to go on IPO, especially after the SM acquisition. That was also a bit of the impetus for this because, yes, Kakao already went on a buying spree. It could have IPO'd without SM Entertainment. But suddenly, if you have SM Entertainment under your umbrella, no matter how troubled it would have been or expensive it would have been to acquire, it suddenly has much more cachet and makes it a much more valuable IPO option, so that if you do a killing in the IPO, it could justify any price that you paid for SM Entertainment. But that wasn't able to happen because of the stock manipulation allegations and I believe even convictions at this point that HYBE suffered. Remember, there was a war between HYBE and Kakao to acquire SM Entertainment, and HYBE lost out, and then it looks, the evidence showed that there was a lot of stock manipulation going on to kick HYBE out of the game, and it looked like they had been getting away with it, but then HYBE filed, I guess, in the international courts and got SM, and so now got Kakao, and so now Kakao is being delayed in its IPO. So for these people who've been waiting since 2018, this is even before coronavirus, this is a long time to be waiting for your big payout. And then now it looks like, HYBE is going to tie this one up longer. So the last part of this theory was that, wow, there's a lot of people, at least 1,000 people who are, registered as employees who have invested in this, so then the network can go further than that. But there's a lot of people who want the downfall of HYBE in order to get the listing of Kakao Entertainment. I was like, well, how is that actually linked if it's not just spite or just wrath against HYBE? And because HYBE is the main victim in this situation of the stock manipulation, you would have to wait for the damages to be calculated for HYBE. So HYBE is actually really holding this up because in a court of law, they are making the assertion that, we got damaged by this, so we have to be compensated for this, and therefore. So if HYBE didn't exist anymore, there's nobody asking to be paid back for the injustices that they have financially suffered. If they're gone out of the picture, then you can do your IPO. But I think this is where there is Kakao trying to make some Jezebel lemonade out of this situation. They probably saw this opportunity. Well, wow, if we rope in Min Hee-jin, because whether she had started from the beginning her plotation or whether her plotation grew to a bigger scale, that's, we need to know, we need to see the answers in the back of the book for that. But it looks like at some certain point there was a meeting of the minds where then if Kakao could help Min Hee-jin, as she said in her Kakao Talk messages, to take over not only ADOR but also HYBE, how valuable would that IPO be of Kakao Entertainment? If Kakao Entertainment had not only all of the SM artists, which it does, and all of the HYBE labels, including BTS, and then they went out on the stock market with the IPO, that would be bananas, bonkers, bonanza, just huge amount of money. And now I see how there were more avenues for you to rope in allies if you're one of either the Uncle Bunnies, the New Jeans Minions. Like, you can find all of these legal avenues through an investment product of a Kakao Entertainment IPO that would be guaranteed to be much bigger if all you had to do was do your little part to destroy HYBE. And so this is why I can see it makes sense for a lot of these people where you're just like, is it only about the cookie? I'm sure cookies have a lot to do with this too, but not everybody, is trying to get the Samoas and the Thin Mints, but everybody would like a little bit of Kakao coin. And especially if it is like a legal mechanism, almost a guaranteed mechanism, a very clean hands-free mechanism. And all you had to do was act a little bit of a fool, like if you're an Uncle Bunny at the National Assembly, or if you're just going to help out with some media smear campaign, or if you're going to try to do some sort of like leave bad messages on, whatever it is, the Jezebel trick book is it's just nauseating to thumb through. And so it does make sense though, that there are people who would benefit. And they even said in this report that a lot of celebrities since 2019 invested large amounts of money, from tens of thousands of dollars all the way to millions of dollars. And I don't want to, name any of the celebrities. You can go look at it online, but because, they may have just legitimately just wanted to invest as well. There's a lot of people, a lot of potential people who may not always be kind-hearted in this, but not only would want to see HYBE fail out of emotions maybe, or even if it wasn't emotional, that's the part. Especially if it's not about it being personal against HYBE, it's just about money, that is even more of a stronger, force, and a more cold and calculated force to comply with, Min Hee-jin's lead. And out of all of these people, we just have very high functioning employees. We have celebrities, and then we have their family, friends, and network. So this is not a group that can't do anything. This is a group and a network of people who can do something like this to do an orchestrated hit on HYBE. So I think the stories in the tea leaves, and this is not, now it doesn't look surprising whatsoever that there are so many people willing to go along with this takedown of HYBE to save their own butts or to pad their own butts, all through this other avenue of getting a payout. All right, guys, what do you think? Put your comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.